Hi, everyone. This is Tom Grisak with the Grisak Group Realty here in Allen, Texas. We're part of the Keller Williams Network. Jason Grisak, our information technology person, Sean Elliott, our team leader, and I are going to talk for about 55 minutes. We're going to give a presentation on the true status of what happened out here in the third quarter of 2024. We have some information you might find interesting. We work with a proprietary database, which we're one of the few offices that have that, and it allows us to rule out some of the variables that can create swings in what you're actually being reported to when we run typical reports on the MLS. So we'll try to keep it at 55 minutes or so. And if you have any questions, please call us. We hope you find this informative and let us know if we can help you in any way. Thank you all.
The first thing we wanted to talk about is it's been on everybody's mind here lately, buyer agent commissions. How much, with this massive lawsuit that's going on. I've gotten this question asked me several times. I'd never been asked it before. Sellers would say, how much should I be paying the buyer agent? Do I have to pay him anything at all? So there's a lot of confusion out there what this lawsuit was all about, and it did definitely impact buyer agent commissions. But the bottom line is it's now almost impossible for we agents to know what other people are paying in the way of buyer agent commissions. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean. And Sean, you can pick up the ball now. And why don't you explain how we got this information, what we had to do personally, because it's not out there for everybody. And then we'll start going through the slides.
Yeah, when we get to the slides, I'll give a little bit more background into the company that kind of developed these and what they're going to show and the information that it provides with us to share with our clients. But at least with this one, when the lawsuit came down, it basically made it impossible for MLS systems to promote what a seller was offering a buyer's agent in terms of commission. We used to not have to really track this very carefully because I could just look in the MLS and see that 123 Main Street is offering a buyer's agent commission of 3% or 2.5% or 4% or whatever the case was. But when the lawsuit came through, MLS systems could no longer promote that. And so it's obviously impossible for us to track this data for every single listing throughout DFW. But what we did decide to do when the change was made is, okay, let's go ahead and track Lovejoy ISD, which is where we do the majority of our business. At any given time in Lovejoy, there's usually 25, 30, maybe 40 homes on the market. This year with increased inventory, it's much, much higher. We're at around 80 homes that are on the MLS right now in Lovejoy. And so basically, with the help of another agent on our team, I kind of developed this spreadsheet where I call agents and I ask. And when a new listing hits the market, I call up and say, hey, if we bring you a buyer, is your seller, offering a commission? And if so, what does that look like? And then we just keep a tally spreadsheet, which produces this data right here. And so I update this sheet every single week. So this was updated last Friday. So it may be a little bit off as a couple of properties have gone under contract this week, but it is still the vast majority of sellers. It's about 75% of homes on the market where that seller is telling buyers agents, hey, if you bring a buyer and you sell my house, I'm going to give you a 3% commission. And then the number of sellers that are offering 2.5% is around 12% of the market. And then we have some that are offering just 2% and some that just say, hey, it's negotiable. If you guys bring me an offer that's acceptable, absolutely, I'm willing to pay a buyer's agent commission, but it's going to depend on what that looks like. So we were used to kind of seeing the numbers be around 90%, where 90% of sellers were offering what we considered a full commission of 3%. That has tailed back a little bit because of the lawsuit, but still, even after 4 or 5 months of data now kind of tracking this, it is still pretty standard practice that we see a seller incentivizing buyers agents to bring their buyer to that house by offering a 3% commission.
And the important thing to know is this is not set. You can charge as much or as little as you want.
Totally negotiable.
Yeah, everything's negotiable in Texas. This is just how it kind of all shook out. But if you're taking the position, I'm going to put my home out there and I'm not going to pay a buyer agent commission, obviously you're at a real disadvantage with agents who unfortunately, they won't show it if they're not going to be paid. They've got to put food on the table. So how
Or
do you pay them? Go
or
ahead.
the buyers may discriminate against it if they have agreed to pay their agent a specific amount already.
Right.
If the buyer feels like, hey, I'm going to have to bring, X amount of cash for my down payment and for renovation and buying furniture, and now on top of that, I got to bring another point or two to pay my agent, that can change their decision-making process on how much they can offer on a home, no doubt.
And we actually had a call earlier. This had never happened with us before, where someone had asked, what is the seller paying in commissions? And we basically had to say, well, it depends on what the offer is. If it's a strong offer, they're going to be paying X amount. And of course, if it's a lowball offer, they're not going to be paying that high in broker agent commission. So this is all something that this is the biggest, I would say, the biggest change to our industry in 20 or 30 years. Because this has always been out there, buyer agent commissions for everybody to see. Now you have to work to find out what sellers are offering. So that was the first thing we wanted to talk about because it's so much in the headlines, and probably will continue to be, but it's starting to shake out, and it's not as much of an issue as we thought it might be early on. So we feel good about that.
Well, one more thing just to point out, Tom, and I like you said earlier, I mean, I'm just a data nerd, so numbers just make sense to me. And what you're seeing on the screen is kind of what's out there right now. But I've got a little side note here. Right now, of the homes in Lovejoy that are on the market, there are 17 that are under contract that have not closed yet. They're pending or in the option period. 15 of those, so 15 of the 17 are offering a 3% commission.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
that's what's selling. Yeah.
That's what's actually selling.
And why don't you explain when we say Lovejoy, if people aren't familiar with this area, they're not really sure what Lovejoy means.
Lovejoy ISD is one of the top 2 or 3 school districts in the state of Texas year after year after year. It used to be kind of a subsection of Allen ISD, and that changed back in 2005, 7, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
you can run searches for specifically Lovejoy ISD.
yes.
And it basically comprised Fairview and Lucas take the majority of those homes are in Lovejoy, but not all. But that's when we talk about Lovejoys because we do so much business out there. So that's why we use that. Okay, go ahead, Sean.
All right, so moving on to the Chart Masters data, and this is basically this was a program that was built by a retired IBM computer programmer whose wife was a real estate agent in like Tennessee, I think, is where this started. And he basically looked at the MLS data that his wife was using, and he noticed a ton of flaws. And I guess he was bored, so he's like, "Hey, I can do better than this." So he built this program where he was basically sifting through MLS data and removing variables that shouldn't be there, removing outliers. And specifically, there were 3 things that he was trying to avoid. One is just human error. We see it all the time where like an agent will input a listing and it comes up as a $3 million listing when that agent really just added a 0 by accident and it's a $300,000 listing. And so the MLS will say, hey, that home had a price correction of 10,000%, whatever. That's obviously an incorrect piece of data. So this program takes those out. The next thing that MLS doesn't account for is if a home has been on the market multiple times and it sells, if that home took 30 days off MLS before it came back and sold, the MLS will think that it sold in less time than it actually did. It won't account for the other times it was on market. So this program does that. So we know if a home sells and let's say it has been on the market for 3 days according to MLS, but it was on the market for 2 years prior to that, we'll know that it was actually a much longer sale. And then the biggest thing to me is when you look in the MLS and you want to see, okay, when that home sold, how much of the asking price did the seller actually get? The MLS has a major flaw there because it will just show what percentage of the last asking price it got, not where it started with its original list price. So just for easy math, if a home is listed at 100,000 and somebody bought it for 99,000, the MLS is going to say that seller got 99% of their asking price. but it won't account for the fact that that home may have started at 150,000 and then dropped to 130 and then 110. And then finally, when it hit 100,000, that's when somebody bought it. So those are the key differences here. And this was created by an IBM programmer, but then purchased by a Keller Williams employee. And so the data that we have here is specific to Keller Williams, and really it's not even in every single market. There are a couple markets in Tennessee, a couple in Atlanta, and a couple in Texas that actually have access to this. And so what we're about to show you on these slides, this is quarterly data for all of DFW. So this is not county specific. Like Jason said, we can get to that. Literally the slides that we get for the quarterly reports, there's like 300 slides. We knocked it down into about 20 just to otherwise, like Tom said, everybody's eyes would gloss over. So what you're seeing is just kind of a broad stroke, but certainly we can get into more specific areas with people that would like to have a discussion about that. So this first one is basically just showing the third quarter of 2024 compared to the third quarter of 2023. So we're saying in July, August, September of last year versus this year, what has kind of changed. So that's what we're going to go through. And this first one is just showing that in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, when it comes to brokers that sell the most homes, we're very happy to show that Keller Williams is up there at the top. And really, for me, it's because of things like these charts, this Chart Masters. I mean, Keller Williams is an amazing training company. They provide the agents with a ton of tools that help them be successful. And to me, it shows in that number right there. So in DFW during the third quarter of this year, KW agents sold about 10% of what was out there on the market. Okay, this one to me is one of the most powerful. And Jason, you can chime in here. I know that you like this one too. But to me, let's start with the blue line just because it's kind of the hottest topic. That's showing interest rates going back all the way to around 2010. And as you can see, that line is about as high as it's been in the past 14, 15 years. Where we topped 7.5% in the middle of 2023. And luckily, those rates have started to come down a little bit. But we're still hovering in the mid to upper sixes right now. Whereas if you look at the past 15 years, I mean, rates have been around 3%, 4%. And so that's a huge change on it, not only on a monthly mortgage payment, but also anybody that bought or refinanced over the past 10 years, they're in a home with a 3% rate. It's real hard to make a move into the next home that's more expensive at a rate that's basically double. So that's what that blue line shows there. Jason, go ahead and I know you show something with the bars.
Yeah, so the line I'm drawing right there, you can see since the rates have really gone up significantly, even though we've had a ton of growth in terms of the amount of people in this living in this area, our peak season was lower than it had been since around 2013 or 2014 in terms of the number of sales. So we've had a ton of growth in DFW, but you wouldn't actually see that by the number of homes sold. And that's just due, you can see here with the interest rates, as soon as they went up, that demand went down. And so those are people, staying in their house. That's people that are renting instead. But you're not seeing as many resales.
People moving back home with mom and dad.
Yeah, a lot of that too.
Yeah. Okay, so what was the interest rate on the home you closed on today? Do you remember? What it's like?
It was in the sixes. Yeah, I think mid sixes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's lower than it has been recently. That's actually kind of low by this year's standards. So
yeah, to me, Jason, the line that you drew showing the red bars is another really important point here. So the red bars, for those of you that can't really see the key here, those are basically showing the number of units that have sold. And the gray bars, the taller bars, if you look at 2024, those are the active listings. So for instance, just if you look at 2021, Jason, if you look at the peak at 2021, you'll see that the gray and the red bars are like the same number. So basically every home that hit the market sold. And in fact, some of those red bars are even higher than the gray bars because people were just buying homes off market left and right. So basically anything that hit the market is sold. Now, if you go to 2024, yeah, we're still selling homes. Those red bars are still at that same level. So there's a lot of transactions. But if you look at the gray bars, look at how much more inventory there is. There's 23,000 homes just sitting on the market. I mean, the number of choices buyers have today versus 3 years ago is crazy. And so even though, yes, homes are selling, yes, we're selling, a similar number of homes, it doesn't feel that way to a lot of people because there's just so many more options. So we've got a ton of sellers sitting there thinking, what the heck is going on? Like I feel like I've been sitting on market forever. Well, this kind of shows it. Yes, there are decisions out there that are still being made, but there are just so many other options that really just the best condition, the lowest price. Those are the ones that buyers are jumping on right now. And if you're not in that position, you're really not getting much activity, and that's why it's feeling so slow. Anything else on that, Tom or Jason?
Yeah, I think that's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing, just one more back, is basically that black line is showing months of inventory, and basically what most people in our industry say is if there's less than 6 months of inventory, then it's a seller's market, meaning sellers still, have the keys, they can still ask for certain things, whatever. I'll tell you what, with our inventory being at about 4 months right now, that may be technically a seller's market, but I'll tell you, in reality, it does not feel that way. Like we just talked about, there's so many homes out there that are just sitting, just waiting, that really we're seeing sellers have to jump through some hoops for the buyers to get the deal done. So us having 4 months of inventory, to me, we're darn near at a balanced market. It does not feel like a seller's market to me.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to 3 years ago, where you'd have 3 or 4 or 5 or more offers on a home within 4 or 5 days of it hitting the MLS. We haven't seen multiple offers. I can't remember the last multiple offer we had. So we have to work harder. We have to market more intelligently. We have to show why our properties stand out. It's not just like it used to be. You stick a home out there and you'll have 3 or 4 buyers for it immediately.
And to that point, look at that black line in 2021. It's all under a month. We had under a month of inventory. I mean, that is a seller's market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next. Jason, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So the change is the number of sold. This is since last year. The number of million plus has gone up about 9%. So basically what we're looking at here is the lower end stuff is moving, the higher end stuff is starting to move a bit more than it was last year. But in the middle, you're having a bit of a decrease in the number sold.
And part of this, a big part of this is just the number of homes that are out there. So in the million plus, if we've got 10,000 more options on the market this year, then clearly there are going to be a few more that sell, right? I mean, there's just more options for people to choose from, and prices have gotten to that point. So, and any slide we see is going to compare third quarter 2024 to third quarter of 2023. So this is just saying this quarter compared to last year at this time, we are selling about 10%, DFW is selling about 10%, 9% more million-dollar homes. But you got to look at the inventory too. There's a ton more inventory in the million plus market. So they kind of go hand in hand. Yeah, that one's got a lot of things. It's going to be tough to talk through that one. All right, prices. This one's obviously huge. People are wondering, hey, with things slowing down, are prices falling off a cliff? Are they still going up? Are they level? Well, this one helps us with that a little bit. So as you can see in 2019, one quarter to the next, we had pretty normal growth. Usually in DFW, we look at about 4 to 5% growth year over year is pretty normal. And then COVID hit in the second quarter of 2020, and nobody knew what was happening, and you can see that drop. And then once we realized COVID was going to be okay, we're all going to get through it, the market just exploded. And so you had massive growth for the next 3 years until we hit early 2023, and those rates really crept up to a level they had not been to in any time, recently prior to that. And so we saw a little tail off in prices. You can see second and third quarter of 2023, prices did come down a little bit, but now they're just kind of stable. So the most recent number, the third quarter of this year, prices are down 0.1% compared to last year. So really pretty darn level. So we haven't seen much growth. We haven't seen prices drop off a cliff. It's just kind of stabilized, which really, honestly, if you talk to anybody in real estate, the growth we had over the past 3 years was not sustainable. It just wasn't. It was unhealthy. It had to stabilize at some point. So honestly, when I see that data, to me, that's very positive. We saw a little bit of a correction and now a leveling off. So, and Tom, you can weigh on this. I don't see prices in this area plummeting or doing anything different. I think we're probably in for a bit of a leveling off period, like we're seeing right now. And then hopefully we start trending back to that, 4 or 5% normal yearly growth.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
I think, yeah, a lot of realtors have kind of had the theory that I've been hearing that all this year, that we're kind of plateauing on prices. Everything's just kind of finally stabilizing. With the interest rates going lower, hopefully over the next year, hopefully some of that growth comes back. But for now, it's good to see that the numbers aren't trending downwards like they were for a little bit there.
Correct. And the problem with interest, everybody thought, okay, the Fed drops rate, things are going to explode, blah, blah, blah. And then we saw the Fed drop rates in September, and we haven't seen the explosion. So everybody's just got to understand the number of variables that go into this equation. It's dozens and dozens and dozens of things. It's economic data, it's job data, it's consumer price index, it's all these different things. So just because rates drop, or just because the Fed decides to drop rates, does not mean that mortgage rates are going to go necessarily, hand in hand, and then we're going to see this explosion in the market. So there's a ton that goes into it. Okay, this is one that again I think is really important and different this year than we've seen in years past. A couple of years ago, like we talked about, you used to you put a home on the market at whatever price you wanted, and there were 5 people ready to give you full ask price, if not over. Times have obviously changed. So if you look at third quarter this year compared to third quarter last year, most homes that sold got about 96.2% of their asking price. And that obviously fluctuates at the different price points a little bit, but as you can see, compared to last year, that is down in every single pricing category. And even though we don't have time to really go into these other slides, we have another report that is a luxury report where we go to $2 million properties, $3 million properties, etc. It's the exact same trend. It's the exact same trend where sellers are having to compromise more than they really ever had before, at least in recent memory. So if you look at the 1 million plus homes that sold in the third quarter this year, most of those sellers got 94.2% of what they were asking, which I know for a lot of them has been it's a punch in the gut. Doesn't feel right, but it's what the market is tolerating right now.
I also think it's interesting to look at the under 300,000, how down that is. That's kind of, it's not the market we work normally, so I don't fully know why that's happening, but it is interesting how low that is.
To me,
you would think
part of it is investor cash. I've been reading a lot of things
be.
recently that foreign investors are pulling out. The prices are just going to be too much. So if you don't have a bunch of international money going after those flips and duplexes and everything, I think that might weigh in on some of that.
When I was working with some kind of a little bit lower end clients this year, kind of around like the 300,000 to 400,000 mark, a lot of the homes were renovated. They were flips by investors. And I talked to so many agents that had those homes on the market for a year, telling me that at this point, their investor was losing money. Yeah. So I could see that being the case.
Yep. Yep.
That makes it tough on us for realtors too, because when sellers are looking to us to give them a price we feel comfortable we can sell a home at, a lot of times it's quite a bit lower than what they think they want to get. Want to get versus what you are going to get are two different things. But we have to have all of these analysis so we can tell them, you can start much higher. And, we leave it to them if they want to start higher, but there's risk in doing that. Do we have a chart on that also,
Oh,
Sean?
yes. Yep.
Okay.
We're getting to what it looks like if somebody hits pricing right on the
Okay,
nose
good.
up front versus if it takes some time.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one is just showing days on market. I don't think we explained this at the beginning, but this program uses median instead of average, which is so much better because if you have average as your metric, you're bringing in a home that sold in a day, and you're bringing in a home that sold in 1,000 days. There's just too many outliers. So we use median because we think that gives a better picture of what most sellers are going through. So anyway, so most sellers that sold their home in the third quarter of this year, they had to be on market for 39 days in order to do that. Obviously, some were lower, some were higher, but most were around that 39-day mark. And again, you look across all price points in the area, every single one was up. Every one. So when sellers are out there feeling like, man, this is just taking a long time, and I'm having to be patient week after week. Yep.
You're not the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, you are. You are not on your own. We're feeling it with you, and there are a lot of other sellers out there feeling it too. Okay. This is leading to what you were talking about, Tom. Basically, the red bars on here are showing the homes that sold without having to do a price reduction, and the gray ones are showing the ones that had to do a price reduction before they actually sold. And it's showing here that, okay, if somebody put their home on the market and it was one of the most attractive prices out there for a good home in a great condition, there weren't a bunch of projects or anything, those homes sold for pretty good percentage of their asking price. Most of them were around 99.5%. Now, this may make some people think, okay, well, did those people just underprice their home? Well, I guess that's possible to a certain degree. But if these were really just underpriced homes that sold at this level, then I would think that you're getting above 100% because there'd be multiple bidders, and that's not the case. Sellers are still having to compromise on these. But what it's showing is if you're really in tune with what's going on in the market, and you need to sell your home and you price accordingly, it's still happening relatively quickly and for almost all of your asking price. But if you don't do that, if you shoot for a number that is a bit of a stretch, or you're just hopeful you're going to get, the consequences that come with that can be pretty devastating. And so if you had to take a price drop on average, if you're looking at the very right-hand column, those sellers were getting about 98.5% of what they were asking as opposed to 99.5%, which doesn't, it depends on the price point. That's thousands of dollars, obviously. But if you look at, for instance, the $1 million plus, if you didn't hit the right price at the right time right off the bat, and you had to make price drops, those sellers in the third quarter of this year, they were down at about 96% of their asking price, as opposed to 98.5% for the people that hit the home run right off the bat with their price.
Wow.
And again, that's up in every single category. This one again is just so telling to me, so telling. The red are the number of days on market if a home did not have to reduce their price. So again, if that home hit the MLS, aggressively priced from the very beginning, those sellers sold in about 2 weeks with about 99.5% of their asking price. If a seller is not in that category, if they didn't hit the perfect price, then they're getting less when all is said and done, and it's taking just a remarkably longer time. So if you look at the right-hand side, the totals, if any home had to do a price reduction, they were on the market for over 2 months, most of them.
And it's interesting too.
2 months feels a lot different than 2 weeks, doesn't it?
Yeah. And it's interesting too that the red bars are all almost the same amount of days. It's, regardless of what your price point is, the amount of demand specifically for that price point, if you hit the price right, it will sell pretty quickly. But if you don't, it could be on the market a really long time.
Mm-hmm. All right. And this one kind of takes what we already kind of talked about and just separates it a little bit more. But if you look in the very middle, in North Texas, in the third quarter, there were about 20,000 homes that closed. Most of those sellers got about 96% of their asking price, and it took about 40 days to sell. And then you branch off. The homes that didn't have to have a price reduction, which you see on the right, it was about half. So about half the homes that sold in Q3 had to take a price reduction, about half did not. So if you're on that right-hand side, the 10,000 homes that did not have to drop their price, just look at their sold to asking price and days on market, 99.5% in 14 days. It moved pretty darn quickly. If that was a brand new home that had not been on MLS before, the numbers are even better. If it was a home that had been on MLS before and it came back at that new aggressive price, the numbers weren't quite as good, and the days on market were obviously a lot longer, but still those sellers were getting 98% of what they were asking. If you had to drop your price, if you're on that left-hand branch, which was about half the homes, you can follow those numbers. It gets tougher. Days on market go up, and the sales price to original list price percentage goes down, especially if you were on the market before. I think this one was going to be too complicated for us to really go through. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we've got some more specific by county numbers. So these are, again, Q3 of this year compared to last year, and this is just the numbers of units that were sold. So as you can see, most units in DFW sold over by Fort Worth in Tarrant County, and then Dallas, and then Collin, and then Denton. So those have been the more desirable areas where people are moving to and from. And here it's a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, the number of sales in Tarrant County is down a little bit. Collin County is up. Those numbers are a little bit higher. But again, you got to keep in mind just how many homes are out there on the market. Yeah, there may be more sales, but there are so many more homes out there trying to sell that, of course, the number of sales should be a little bit higher in those cases. Anything else to comment on this one, guys? I mean, what areas have really grown in volume during this quarter? Collin, Fannin.
Collin, and I mean, you're probably seeing a lot of that with the new builds that do go on the MLS, which, you know, a lot of them are like Salina, a lot of that area that is in Collin. A lot of that's probably just coming from the new builds that you're seeing right now.
Does it surprise you, Tom, to see Rockwall drop a little bit? I mean, Rockwall Heath has just been kind of an area of growth over the past 3-4 years. I'm kind of surprised to see that number drop.
Yeah, it really has. And then Salina, I mean, that was kind of Rockwall was a place that people wanted to be and build. And now that's kind of moved up in Salina. The last couple of months, Salina's all over the press as far as being one of the best places in the country to live, one of the fastest growing. So I think, they just moves around. But Collin County, I would say, has got as safe a bet as you're going to have owning a home or selling a home in Collin County, because it's definitely a destination, a place from the East Coast and West Coast. We sell homes out of those areas all the time. So, we love being here in Collin County.
So there's just the percentage change in those areas we talked about. So like we said, Collin has grown a little bit. That Fannin Lamar County number, I take that with a grain of salt just because the total sales was so small. So any fluctuation is going to be a big percentage change. But it does make sense that more people are moving up to Van Alstyne. I mean, there's cheap land and there's so much stuff going up 75 and the tollway and press and everything that, it's going to be heading north.
Yep. But as far as the bigger like population areas, Collin County is the only one that has actually, like, if you look at the ones that have over 3,000 sales, we're the only one that's really had growth other than Dallas at 0.1%. And so as far as the big areas go, Collin is the only one that's growing right now.
That's true.
In terms of sales.
Yep. So the prices. How the prices changed from last year to this year this time? Looks like Collin is down a bit. Denton is up a bit, which Is Salina all Denton, or is Salina broken up between Denton and Collin County?
It is partially Collin.
Yeah,
It's mostly Denton though, isn't it?
I think it's maybe
It's-
about half and half.
yeah,
I
I
think
don't know what the percentage is.
I think the
Just-
west side is more dim, but a lot of the growth, a lot of the like when I was looking at new builds there, it's mostly Collin.
Okay.
I think a lot of the growth is on that eastern side right now.
I just know with people
Moving west.
I know the prices in Salina and Prosper have obviously grown over the past couple of years, so I would think that would account for some of Denton County's median sales price growth.
Probably does, yeah.
And then all the other, I mean, a lot of them, and if you look down at the bottom, all combined, it's pretty darn level. So to me, yes, there's some differences county to county, but if you just look at the whole North Texas area, this goes back to a slide we had before. We've just seen a stabilization in prices. Things have just kind of stayed the same over the past year. Jason, I know you put this one together. You want to go through this one, brother? This has got a lot of numbers on it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big story is that the number of active listings from last year has grown significantly. You see the number of sold.
And this is just Collin, right?
Yeah, this is just for Collin. Okay. So for our market, you're seeing a slight increase in the number of solds, but not significant, but a huge increase in the number of active listings. So you have about the same number of buyers, but almost double the sellers. Yeah. And so that makes for a much more competitive market between sellers, which is why you saw the price in Collin come down a little bit. Yeah. You're competing against other people more. And that's why it's difficult for a lot of homes to sell right now, even though we have the same actually a slight increase in the number of sold listings. Mm-hmm. That's causing the median days on market to go up. That's causing, the actual sell price versus list price to go down. And it's also caused an increase in the number of failed listings. Those are listings that either expire or cancel. So about 30% of listings now don't sell. They expire or cancel.
That's wild. That to me, that's a number. If you would have bet me that 2 years ago that number would be anywhere close to that, I would have lost the bet.
It was unusual for a home not to sell at any price. That was the outlier.
Yeah, exactly. And now 3 out of every 10 is just not selling. That's a big number.
Yeah, it's very big. Now some of those will relist eventually. And a lot of those do sell, but as we saw before, the ones that do are typically taking, more and more price cuts to get there, or they just never sell. Concessions are up. So, the amount of, money towards repairs, things like that, that sellers are having to give to the buyer, that number is up because, again, it's just more competitive.
And to me, that's another mental thing that's really tough for anybody. I mean, just when sellers are out there, there's obviously a lot of pride in your home. You've loved it. You put work into it. And for the home to sit and not get an offer, that's mentally tough. And then if you have to do a price reduction, that's even tougher. And then after that, you're telling me I got to give a little bit of extra money to the buyer just to get this done. What are you talking about? And that's where I think we're feeling, a lot of frustration, and people are just kind of, it's just hard right now because you're having to do that. And I mean, the numbers don't lie. That's real money. But the truth of the matter is, and this is why we're doing this, is to share this information. This is what sellers are having to do to get it across the finish line.
Yeah. And the supply in months too, just the supply line, that is the supply in months. So that's if there were no new listings, how many months would it take for everything to sell given the amount of current buyers on the market? And you can see it was quite low before. Technically 3.2 is not that high. But a lot of that doesn't include people who are choosing to build new, which we are seeing a lot in Collin County, in areas of McKinney, a lot of these master plan communities. So that number really is a bit higher than that, if you're counting those people as well.
Yeah. Well, like we said earlier, I struggle to think that 6 months of inventory is a balanced market. Once you get around 4, it feels like it's tougher on a seller. Mm-hmm. Median sales price. So where are the most valuable homes in DFW? I don't think Highland Park surprises anybody. And then
Yeah, Highland Park and South Lake,
and
Preston
then, yeah,
Hollow,
Preston Hollow,
Bluffview.
South Lake, Northwest Dallas, Salina is up there now, pretty
Um,
big.
yeah, I think it's interesting though. Like you're seeing a lot of growth in areas like Princeton. That's kind of near us, so we've really noticed that. Kind of
Mhm.
seeing where the cheapest ones are. That's interesting because you're going to see growth there if there is land to build on. That's why you're seeing this huge explosion in Princeton right now because um, there are new builds in Princeton starting at $220,000, and these are not townhouses. These are, single family detached homes. So I think that's the really interesting part here. Um, obviously Allen's, homes in Allen are worth something. They're going to continue to be worth something, but those lower end ones with areas to build, I think are areas to watch. And they're good that we have those in this area as well,
Yeah.
for growth.
What I noticed on this too immediately was Lovejoy is always up there in the top three school districts, public school districts in the entire state of Texas. It's up there with Highland Park and South Lake. And those are the two of the highest price, median sale price homes in this entire area. And if you could break this out just to Lovejoy, I would guarantee we would be up there within that. It's impossible to build a home in Lovejoy anymore for under about, oh gosh, probably $1.8 million, $1.9 million. And that doesn't include the pool and all the other things you'll be with it. So where the higher, more property wealthy people live, that's also where the best school districts are. So if you live out here in Lovejoy, you've got a good thing going with our school district.
Yep, no doubt. Okay. Oh, this one is luxury, isn't it?
So this is the luxury
Yeah.
section. So
So
now we're
this
kind of
is
focusing on the $750,000 plus. This is for the whole Metroplex, not just Collin County, but it kind of shows you, for people that are in Lovejoy are and probably have a higher value home, it is showing how that months of supply does change a lot. The active listing to number of buyers ratio changes a lot based on the price point. The sold price to listing price, how much that changes. 2 million plus throughout DFW, you're looking at almost 9 months of supply. Those homes are sitting. You had 260, let's see, how much was it? So 130 contracts.
And that's during the quarter. I mean, that's a 3
Yeah,
month
during the
period.
quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Versus
And
772 that were active.
yes, and the number of failed listings as well, over 50% for 2 million plus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Active listings 750 plus, up in pretty much every category.
By
I mean,
county.
yeah, that matches what we've talked about.
Yeah.
But Dallas has the most, and then Collin. Okay.
Mhm. And then that's the
Sales
closings.
delivery.
So
Collin's
it's
pretty
level
level.
for us basically. Some areas you're seeing the growth, like in Dallas, like in Denton, but for us, it's completely level. You're seeing the same number, exactly the same number of buyers, basically, as you were last year.
Another thing, and I'm curious your opinion on this, Tom and Jason, but I don't know if you've been reading the same thing that I have over the past year and a half, is that people are just done being in Dallas. They want to get out. They're ready to move to where there's more space, there's less congestion, whatever. And so if that is the case, which certainly makes sense, you'd expect those number of luxury Dallas sales to go up, right? I mean, people are wanting to get out, sell that home, somebody else comes in. So maybe that has something to do with it. People are just looking to get out of the area a little bit, get to more space, but that's interesting.
Continues to move north and through the Golden Corridor between Preston and the Tollway. Lots of people moving out to the bottom area because of the big lake out there, and it's relatively close. We just put a home and on 20 acres in Denison. We've never sold a home in Denison. We posted on our Facebook page. I can't remember how many did we have at the last.
Over 100,000 views. It was over 100.
To fake, and we didn't boost that either, did we, Jason?
No, that was all organic.
And it went under contract in 3 or 4 days. So
Mhm.
That's a good indication there too. You know, people they're wanting to get out of either a vacation home or they're going to move out there. Everything is always moving north. So
Yeah, and also with the Dallas, it's worth keeping in mind that that is Dallas County, not just the city. So I mean, you'll have what like Richardson, some of those areas where there is a good bit of activity on the higher end areas. You know, people that don't want to be in Dallas but
Well,
still want that close commute.
even if you're in certain pockets of Richardson, I mean, like honestly, that
Yeah,
yes, you can get a $300,000 home in some parts of Richardson, but many others are very, very affluent, nice areas. I
I
mean,
know, and that's
so,
why
so
you're
seven
seeing the
750
go
being
up.
the lower
Yeah,
barometer here. I mean, that's basically every home down there.
yeah, basically.
Percent change in days on market. Kaufman
Yeah.
County has taken a while.
Yes. So Kaufman, we are up significantly, almost 50%.
Mhm.
Same with Dallas. You're seeing some areas where that's not the case, like Tarrant County, for example, hasn't really increased that much in terms of days on market. Rockwall Hunt has gone down. Um, so
For
in
luxury. For luxury.
Yeah, for luxury, right, for higher end homes. And then again, Fan and Lamar, there's like probably, 5 sales over 750. So it's not and they're all land. So that's not really worth keeping in mind. But yeah, for Kaufman, you don't want to be selling $1 million house in Kaufman right now, for sure.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right.
well, I know that's a tremendous amount of information that you guys are looking at and having to digest, but it all comes down to really we're in a good spot here in Collin County. And we're not seeing, it's not like California where we have these huge ups and then these big downs. It's a very stable, steady market. But if you're selling a home, you really still have to be
You have to price competitively.
price competitive,
Um,
listen to your agents, have them show you why they think your home would be in comparison with the other homes that they've got, and then try to be there. The days of hitting the home runs are over. So
mhm.
it's a matter of being good, solid real estate, and there are buyers out there, I promise you, if you price them competitive.
Yeah, and for older homes, like, now we're starting to advise some of our clients just to paint. It's not expensive, but little things like that, pricing right, just doing the little things, staging correctly, everything like that. You're having to do those things to sell, but if you do and you price correctly, homes are still selling. The same number of buyers are out there as before. And so you can still sell very quickly. But you can't just throw any home on the market and get 25 offers like we could a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the biggest changes, Jason, the point you just made. For the first X number of years for, my career in this, I would have never dreamed of telling a seller, hey, replace that carpet, paint that room, change out that fixture, whatever, because you didn't have to, right?
Yeah,
It
never
is
had.
just now in the past year and a half where you really have to consider those things. Oh, painting will cost you $2,000. It might get the home sold. Let's talk about it. So yeah, I think that's a really key point there.
And
Yeah, and I
remember,
mean,
we're very cognizant about spending other people's money, excuse me, or suggesting that we do. The sellers are relying on us to give them some advice. And it's easy for us to suggest that a seller spends a ton of money. That's not, we don't want the seller to spend any more money into a home than they have to get it ready for the market. So we take all of that we look for major objections and we try to deal with those, and we do it sensibly with the seller. So again, we know this is your money we're playing with here.
yeah, but you can end up selling your home for significantly more just because when someone walks in, the walls are white. It's pretty cheap to make the walls white compared to what the home might sell for. And
Well, yeah, it's why being plugged in is so important. I mean, if you're just picking ideas out of a hat and hoping they stick, it's not going to do your seller any good. But if you're really
yeah,
leaning on this
yeah,
data and you're plugged in, you're seeing homes, you're talking to sellers, you're talking to buyers, it's our job to have these conversations with our clients so they know what's going on. And then, the decision they make from there is totally up to them. But like Tom said, our job is to just arm you with information so you guys can make the best choice possible.
Well, Sean,
yep.
Jason, you guys are a wealth of information. You're like walking encyclopedias.
We're
And
nerds. You can say it, Tom. We're data nerds. Yeah, we get it.
yeah, and I didn't want to insult you by saying that, but that's so important because we really try very hard to price our properties correctly right out of the box. And we're not the type of agents to say, look, you either take it or we suggest, or we're not going to take the listing. We don't get it right all the time. We do our best. If they want to start higher, we're fine with it as long as it's reasonable, but we will build a case on why we feel your home should be marketed at a price and give you a pretty rough idea of how long we think it'll sell. And then we just do our best. I think we got the best marketing program in the entire industry. So,
Well, I mean, last month we took on 2 homes that were listed with another agent for a very long time. And on one of them, we didn't have to do a price reduction. On the other one, we did a 20,000 price reduction. One of those homes went under contract in 6 days. The other one went in less than a month. And so obviously the pricing and all the data, is a huge aspect of it, but also like what you're saying, the marketing and the things that we do make a huge difference as well. Just like in those cases.
a lot of times we'll take over a listing and we think it's already priced correctly. And we're not going to, it's easy for us to say, well, drop the price X amount of dollars. But sometimes we see homes like, that's a fair deal. And we talk to the seller, say, let's give it a try at that price again. Let us reshoot all of the photography. Let us do the staging. Let us do all the things that we normally do. And let's see what happens. And that really paid off for us in a couple of listings that we've just put into the title. So.
Yeah.
If you have questions or if you'd like to give us a call, Sean, why don't you give him your number and Jason yours?
We can.
Is it on our website? If you search our agents on the website,
it is, and you can always just call the company phones. So Sean's normally on those. If for some reason he's not, I would be the one on 972-359-1553. And you'll get connected to one of us.
And one more thing before we I know we're running short on time, but I think what a lot of people have been asking right now, I know I've heard this question a lot, is okay, what's going to happen once the election is past us, right? And the answer is none of us really know for sure. I mean, we will certainly find out, but and Tom, you've been doing this for a lot longer than Jason and I have, but I think you've seen in election years, especially when there's a lot of uncertainty about the direction our country's heading, people will just wait to see what happens. They're just nervous to spend large sums of money when there's so much uncertainty about what's coming. So no matter which way the election turns out here in 2 weeks, I think once we're past it and at least, people know what direction we're heading, I do predict that things will ease up a bit and things will feel a little bit smoother and a little less difficult. But the truth of it is,
we're all going to find out together.
We're going to find out together. Exactly.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for sitting in with us. And we're going to have another one of these it'll be early January, and we'll compare this one with what happens in this fourth quarter. So that'll be real interesting to see. We'll use the same slides. So thank you all and have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.